Hello there, I'm Cobra Disney Jedi, and welcome to another edition of the Inner Tube. My guest this week is no stranger to a lot of you people in the chat. He's been on with you've seen him on other live streams. He hasn't. This is the first time he's actually been on my live stream. So please help me in welcoming Matt, the Matcave.
Hey,
Matcave, how are you doing?
good man. How's it going?
Not too bad. I'm doing great. Just had a heck of a wonderful day, getting things all, we're upgrading our living room and our bed came in sooner than we thought. And
There you
so
go.
we're going to be doing a lot. We're on the finishing touches of it.
You know what? That's the thing with homeowner. It's a whole nother job in itself, dude. It's a never ending project.
Yep, it is. It's absolutely. So it's great to have you on. I think this is the first time we've actually had a chance to chat with each other, in the same live stream.
Yeah,
We
I mean, outside of occasionally being like in pop-ins on EBN and stuff like that here and there, this is really the first time. So I'm happy to be here, man.
That's great. Well, great to have you here. So I as you know, I gave you a list of questions here, so I gave you time to prep, but we're also going to discuss a few. There's some things that will be chatting as we speak, and mostly we're going to be talking video games tonight.
Nice.
Yes,
That happens to be right up my alley.
that's right up your alley. Yeah, and I'm as far as video games go, I'm as literate as illiterate as possible. So anyway, so the first question, Matt, is what inspired you to do a YouTube channel?
Uh, it was it was something that kind of spawned from what I wanted to do when I was a kid, when I was growing up. It was my dream was to be a filmmaker. And it was one of those things that just it didn't really work out that way. I looked into film schools and stuff like that and just costs and everything involved with it. It wasn't in the realm of possibility for it. So it was just kind of one of those things that just, it happens for a lot of people. You're not going to do your dream job all the time. You have to be very lucky in a lot of cases to do that. Um, and then all of a sudden this platform comes out. And it's like when YouTube first came out, the whole intent was for people to kind of share home movies and stuff like that. And it was just a very little thing. It was this niche little thing that some people did, and it fascinated me. And I just watched it grow and grow over the years until the point where I'm just becoming an audience member of watching these content creators that I started to watch more than I would watch regular TV. And it just seemed like such a cool idea. I was like, that's so great. People get an opportunity to do this, talk about whatever topics they want to talk, make their own shows, make their own content. And then fast forward years down the line, I start to see channels like Star Wars Theory, and then I found Echobase Network, and just all these other channels that start coming into play. But seeing these communities build, and that's where the real inspiration came in. Star Wars Theory was probably the biggest inspiration at first, where because I remember going on to one of his Q&A sessions, and a lot of people kept asking him the same thing, like, what do you think? Should I make a channel? What would you do? And his answer was so simple. He said, just do it.
That's
Just
right.
do it.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's great advice.
yeah. I was like,
It's
what? It is
it
that
works.
simple, right?
It's like
So
learning to swim, jump in the water.
yeah, just dive in, see if you like it, whatever it may be. And then fast forward even a few more years, I found Echobase Network. This was right around the time of the season 2 finale of Mandalorian, and I'm seeing all these reactions to Luke's return, and Echobase Network was a big one that popped up, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I'm seeing all this thing about community and stuff. And it was at that point I was like, you know what? I'm gonna, because I already had a channel. I made it, and I did a couple little things here and there with it, but it wasn't much of anything. And I said, you know what? This is what I want to do.
That's
I want to be able to be part of a community like this. I want to, make my own stuff, talk about things I want to talk about, and get it out there. And just Echobase ended up becoming this huge inspiration for it. And they did pop-ins and stuff like that. And I was like, well, let me see if I can even handle being on a pop-in. And I thought it went well. I was like, oh, this was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, it was.
I just went for it, man. I decided, all right, I'm going to hit the go button.
That's right. Yeah, they're one of my inspirations as well. No doubt about it. It's like, and they have jobs to do, and so yet they're taking the time to do, something that they love to talk about, and if you make it your own, you're a content creator.
Yeah.
So now the Matcave, that's an interesting name. I mean, it sounds to me like there's a lot of inspirations behind the name, the Matcave, because you can take it so many ways. What's
Oh
the story
yeah.
behind
The name, it was something I thought about for a while, and I was like, is it going to be too similar to what it really sounds like? I was like, are people going to think I'm making a Batman channel? Which, ironically, I have yet to do any Batman content, which I will soon, actually, because there is a certain NES title that needs to be addressed. But there is, it was one of those things where I looked at it more like, not saying like it's a spin on the Bat Cave, but I look at it more of a spin on just a man cave, which anyone could have.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean you have to be a man to have a man cave. I'm looking like literally anyone can have, whoever wants to have a space where the point of this space are all of the things that you enjoy in pop culture or collecting or gaming, movies, whatever it may be, whatever you would just have in your space. That's a man cave. So I was like, all right, well, I'll make it a play off of my name is Matt. I'm like,
There
I'll
you
just
go.
call it the Matt Cave. And I started calling it the Matt Cave to my friends. My collection of movies, I called it Matt Buster. And it was just a joke within my group of friends. I was like, that's the channel name. I'm like, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the Matt Cave. Just very simple. And it doesn't isolate me to a certain topic, because that was the other thing. I didn't want to be stuck in a box somewhat. I didn't want to just talk about one thing. I wanted to be able to branch out into anything anyone would have in their man cave. So that's where the
That's
name
right.
came in.
Yeah. And you got yourself a nice little man cave yourself. It's
Yeah.
like sometimes I have to my man cave. It just depends on where I can find a quiet place.
Yeah. Because it could
Usually it's
be
my
anything.
bedroom,
Yeah.
but it
That's the
works.
thing.
So you talked about Echobase Network. You talked about Star Wars theories. Any other YouTubers you have that you really are inspired by?
I mean, I watch like channels that have grown. It's so funny. Like through Echobase, I met so many people, yourself included, and that that community branched out into so many different channels with people around the world. I mean, I'll go on and like be chatting with Strike, and he's over in Germany, and then I'm chatting with X-Wing, and he's over in Nevada. Like it was just like we're all over the place, but we all have this common ground. We all met through Star Wars. Like that's what really brought everybody together. It was Star Wars. But then we start to figure out, well, what is everybody individually into? And I kind of became one of the gamers in the group. So, and obviously there's plenty of Star Wars games, so I could jump in the Star Wars stuff and relate it to video games. But like X-Wing, for example, um, watching his channel grow and what he was doing, talking about like toy collecting and stuff like that, I was like, that's really inspirational right there. It was one of those
Mhm.
things that I never got so much into collecting, but it fascinated me and I always liked hearing about it. So then seeing his channel grow from that passion of what he wanted to talk about, and then all branching into having his own shows, the Hangar Bay, Boomer Council, which I'm now proudly a part of. I'm beside myself still that I get to be on that. Um, but and then I meet Star Wars Obsession and Paul with the Star Wars guys, and just
Mhm.
Hawks Holocrons. It's like these are the channels I'm going to on a daily basis. I'm like, what do you guys got? What's Coffee on Korban got going on today? Let's like it's just you meet this like group of friends, but these friends also happen to be, for lack of a better term, the TV channels that I'm flipping to now. Like, it's like, oh,
It's
what's
yeah.
on Star Wars guys today? Let me flip the channel and see what's going on.
Yeah, there's so many things out there. It's like sometimes I don't even have time to just binge watch Netflix or
Mm,
other streaming services. There's so many things to look at. So, so you did talk about,
mm,
us being from all over the world.
mm.
So where is your neck of the woods? Where do you hail from?
I'm from New York, and
Like,
we've had a few people from the community seem to find it funny how I say Mario.
okay, yeah, I've visited New York myself.
Mm.
I've been there for a little bit, and um, of course, are you in the city or are you upstate?
I'm on Long Island, actually.
Oh, are you on Long Island? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, because it's interesting because when you talk about, if you're upstate, if you're in a town like, say, Newburgh, which is not even far
Mm.
from this Big Apple, I mean, people call that upstate.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, just with the tri-state area over here, it's just kind of like we all have in our mind these like lines. It's like once you're beyond this point, you're upstate, or you're beyond this point, you're in Jersey. You're in like it's just yeah,
Yeah,
we're an interesting breed.
it's something like an hour drive from the Big Apple to Newburgh or something like that, to one of
Yeah.
those little small towns or something. So
Yep.
yeah, it's like, yeah, we've been there a few times ourselves. We took a trip back in 2018, the whole family, and it was
Nice.
my daughter's first trips ever that they went. So they had mixed
Yeah.
reactions on it.
See, it's nice when when you're in areas where there's a lot of surrounding places. Like, we took our kids on a trip just to Pennsylvania,
Hmm.
to take them to Sesame Place. I got young kids and everything, so it's all right. Well, it's a theme park designed for young kids, so we can go as a family, and that was our first kind of adventure of taking the kids on a long drive. Like, all right, now we're gonna have them in the car for a few hours. How is this gonna go? Luckily, it went very well, but it could have gone sideways.
Yeah. So exactly. Families. It's like, you get an idea of if what they like, by just
Mhm.
doing things together. And so, speaking of, family, it's like, of course, this for us, for many of us, this is a hobby. This is what we do. So
Mhm.
how do you find that balance between, doing your job, doing your family obligations that you have, like I
Mhm.
do. And, I'm a full-time worker, and
Yeah.
it's hard. How do you prioritize things?
It's tricky. Finding the time for anything is I mean, once you once you reach adulthood, it's just kind of like time is one of those things that eludes you almost all the time.
Yeah.
You just got to find time for everything and try to balance it. Um, and I have a full-time job. I have my family. My work schedule recently even changed again, where now I have split days off, so it makes balancing this even trickier.
Oh, wow.
Um, and it's just like one of those, and my shift is kind of a midday thing, so it takes up the whole day. Like, it's like, all right, I got a piece of the morning, but now I'm work all day, and now I only have a piece of the evening, and then what else am I going to do? So it's time to figure out, okay, now how much time do I have to invest in the channel? And I've done more recently, I've done more live streams than pre-recorded content, simply because of lack of time. It's easier to go live and do something in real time
Hmm.
than to put together, content. But that said, I love making content. I love the editing process. I love putting together a project. And I have things that I've been putting things together and just been haven't been able to have the time to keep completing these things.
Right.
Um,
It's
like
difficult.
it's difficult, man, and but I love the pre-recorded stuff because I feel like that has more of the replay value. So, like, for example, one of the things on my channel that I'm most proud of is my series of videos about the Battle for Hoth in video games.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have to put the finale out, and I have to complete it to get it out there. And that's just one of those things that's just kind of pending on my plate to put out there. But I had so much fun building that series and putting all the footage together, replaying the game so I could capture all of this and to kind of tell a story as it's going. And I had so much fun doing it, but it's time consuming. And when you have to put that into segments in between work and family and just life in general, it becomes tricky.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like when you talk about if you want to try put something out, like if there's like some big news that, it's like you want to share your thoughts. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a difficult time just reacting to the Kenobi trailer.
Yeah. It's it's just a fun. And you know what? I look at it like I just kind of like I solidified in my mind and made peace with the fact that I'm never going to be the one breaking this news. Like it was like, I'll get to it eventually. Like the quickest
Exactly.
I've gotten to anything so far was just recently was about the changes to the PlayStation Plus service. And even that I was late to the game, but it was still same day. So I was like, all right, I feel pretty good about this. I'll make a quick video and I'll talk about it and dive into some gaming news, which I haven't done much of, but I would like to
Right.
do more of. But by then, so many of my favorite YouTubers, for example, the Dreamcast guy, I love his channel. And he, I think, actually broke the news on YouTube. I think he was the first to report on it. And I get a lot of my gaming news from his channel. But other channels like I'll go to like the Angry Joe show, or I'll go to like Cinemassacre, or I'll go to like different places for different type of content. Like I'm kind of all over the place on YouTube as far as what I watch. It because I love so many different types of content. And it's like anything else, like you kind of get into a mood for a certain thing you want to watch, whether it's a movie, a TV show, or whatever. YouTube's the same way.
Yep, that's right. So, real quickly, we'll say, hey,
Hey.
Nerdporial, how you doing? Good to have you.
Mhm. Speaking of people who find it funny how I say Mario.
That's good. So, okay, so then speaking of, just Star Wars in general, what was your Star Wars experience?
I grew up with Star Wars. It's been in my life since birth. I was born in 82.
Okay.
And I saw A New Hope when I was somewhere around 2 years old. My father had shown me. I still remember, actually, I think I have it, the VHS tape that my father recorded A New Hope on. The Mario Brothers. You see, slightly on topic, but off topic. The other night on
Yeah.
my stream, apparently, according to X-Wing, I say Nevada wrong. And I'm sure I
Okay.
just said it wrong again in his eyes, but there was a whole back and forth of him trying to correct me.
A lot of people mispronounce Oregon.
Yeah.
There's like people who will say Oregon, and it's like, okay.
See, that's how I would say Oregon.
Yeah, it's Oregon. I mean, just think of an or and a gun, an or and a gun, and you're good.
I gotta go to like a language class with all you guys and just figure out what I'm saying wrong.
That's right.
Um,
But anyway, getting back to Star Wars.
yeah, so that was I would watch A New Hope all the time. Like I would rewind this tape constantly, and then I saw Empire Strikes Back probably about when I was 3 or 4 years old, and we have like home movies of me watching Star Wars. Like it's always been part of my life. And my father would talk to me and my brother about how he went to the theaters to see Star Wars, not knowing
Yep.
what it was. He would just went, but him and his friends and everybody were just like, some cool space movie. Let's go check it out. And then all of a sudden, you get Star Wars in your life, and it just it doesn't go away.
That's right. Yeah. I
So,
It came out when I was like in the second grade, and the whole summer passed, and it's like it was finally not until like the fall of my third grade that my dad finally gave in and let me go see Star Wars in the movie theaters. And I had friends that had seen it at least 5, 6 times, and I only saw it once. But
Mm.
I still saw it, and it was you know good times.
Oh yeah, no, it's a major experience, man. It's Star Wars has an impact on everybody who sees it, whether you like it or not. Like it just
Mhm.
it changes you.
Yeah.
Oh, I once going to say Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
I remember the Muppet Show when Gonzo played Darth Vader, and they called him
Yep,
Darth Nader.
Darth Vader. I
Yeah,
remember that episode. Mark Hamill was on there,
it
and
was great.
I remember watching the Muppet Babies doing Star Wars on that cartoon.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so then obviously you're a fan of the original trilogy.
Mm.
You know, a lot of people I talk to say Empire's their go-to movie. Is that the same for you?
It is. I know
Yeah.
it's cliche, but it really is. Empire Strikes Back is so my two top favorite movies of all time happen to be sequels. It's Empire Strikes Back is in slot number 1 and Rocky 2 is in slot number 2 for
Oh
me.
yes.
Those are my two like go-to movies. I will watch them over and over for my entire life. Like that those are my big ones.
Yeah, and I'm with you, nerd. It's Star Wars. I don't really like calling it New Hope. I prefer because to me that was Star Wars.
Yeah. See, I came into it as it was renamed.
Yeah.
Although on the VHS I have of it, the recording off of TV, it does
hmm
not say A New Hope. It just says
Yeah,
Star Wars in the crawl.
that's nice. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple VHS the trilogies and on VHS and DVD, but they're both a special edition. I don't have anything from the original trilogy.
Yeah. I do have if you want to access to it, I have the whatever that fan made, the despecialized copies, which
Okay.
is as close to the theatrical as they could get.
Okay.
Yeah, I got them on my Google Drive if you want access to it.
Yeah. Agreed with that. Kids they call it New Hope. I'm
They
like,
just call it A New Hope.
yeah,
Yeah.
old school people like us, definitely it's Star Wars. So then, with I mean, for me, this is just a hobby. I mean, there's stuff that I used to do in the past, for recreation. But do you have any other hobbies that you have, or outside of video games? And
Uh, yeah, I mean, when there was more time, I used to draw. I still like, when I get a chance, I'll sit down and draw with my kids, and I'll draw them a picture, and they'll color it, or something like that. I always loved music. I mean, that's it was something that I was one of those, I was one of the band geeks. It's funny, my wife and I, we have even like my sister-in-law made a sign for us that's like says something. What does it say? It says all because two band geeks, two people met or as band geeks or something like that. I
Mhm.
forget exactly what it says, but so music was always a big part of life. But I was always on the nerdier side of things. Star Wars obviously a big thing, but at the same time, I grew up playing hockey, and I would have I was kind of in with every group. Like it was no like how school was. It was always the separation.
Mhm.
You got the nerds, you got the jocks, you got the goth kids, you got the whoever, you get the whatever group, whatever. But I was always kind of scattered amongst every group.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Star Wars was a common ground for a lot of people. And
It
back then
was.
it wasn't as popular to say outwardly say you're a Star Wars fan. Coach actually this morning put it pretty well when he was on Star Wars Santa's channel this morning talking about that. Back in the day, it wasn't so popular to say out loud that you were a fan of Star Wars. Now it's different. Now it's like people will proudly wear a Star Wars shirt or one that's making fun of it,
Mhm.
and it's cool to do that. But back then, it was kind of like, you're a nerd, and then whatever. But
Yes, that's true.
mm, yeah. But that was another one too. Star Trek. I wasn't
Yeah.
as big into Star Trek as I was Star Wars, but my father was huge into Star Trek, and so was my uncle.
Mhm.
So my experience with Star Trek came from them. Like I love the original Star Trek series. But for me, Next Generation was my Star Trek. That was the one that I watched as it aired. And
Yeah.
I grew up watching that and I loved it.
Mhm.
Um, but it wasn't like how I was saying before, like you kind of with anything on TV or movies, you kind of have to be in the mood for that type of thing to watch. I
Yeah.
had to be in the mood to watch Star Trek. So it's not like I would just pop it on all the time. But Star Wars for me was one of those things that it was like it didn't matter what mood I was in. I was like, I could pop on a Star Wars movie and be content and sit down and
That's
watch
right.
it, you know.
That's right.
But I'm sure that's the same for a lot of Star Trek fans. So they would just pop in whatever movie or show and be good to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean yeah, I mean, especially, old school people like us when we talk about original trilogies, we
Mm.
and then prequels, that's what my kids grew up on. Is my two
Mhm.
sons, they're in their mid-20s. They're about the same age as Paul and Tim, Coffee and Corbin.
Yeah.
They're around that same age, and so they're prequels, and my other son, my younger son, is the bigger fan than my oldest one. So
Mm.
you know it's a common ground. We talk a lot about the things that are going on there. So
Yeah.
I see, looking at your channel, you're over 300 subscribers. So
Mhm.
that, which is, are there any hopes and aspirations of seeing your channel grow, or do you just want to
I
just let whatever happens happens?
I definitely wanna see it grow. I'm purposefully making some adjustments to the channel over time and doing things to try to help it grow. Because I would love, for it to expand into a wide audience, something where I can actually invest into it a bit more. Um, that's one of the like my next goal is to hit 500 and primarily for that community tab. Nice. I don't think it would be worth anything though.
Yeah.
um, but it's like, I know you can apply to be monetized once you pass 1,000, but I really want that 500 because I want that community tab. I want to be able to interact with everybody a little more through there. I love the idea of being able to post a message there or give some updates to people, right through that. It seems like a nice, simple, and really user friendly way of communicating with
Mhm.
your audience, hence the community tab. Um, but I would love to take it beyond that. If it never does, that's okay. I'm all right. Um, if this could grow into something that this is what I do, even better.
Yep.
I would love for that. I think it would be so much fun. I would love to be able to invest more time into this, and it's amazing what you can do with very little. That's where we're at with technology at this point. The technology that we have literally in the palm of our hands. You could do an entire channel just from your phone. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing what you have the opportunity to do with this. But it comes down to whether or not you even have the passion to do it. Is there anything that do you have a voice that you want heard and ideas that you want to share with people? Um, and I'm still like at a point with the channel where I'm trying to find my groove with it. I'm trying to develop some sort of a schedule, which is the toughest thing to do
Yeah.
because I would like there to be a point where people can look forward to something coming out. It's like, oh, you know what? At this date, at this time, there's going to be a new Matcave video. Like, I want that to eventually be a thing.
Right.
Um, but it's just that's been the trickiest thing, is finding that point where I can fit it into the balance. For now, it's a really fun hobby. Um, well, I don't know. It's more than a hobby, you know. It's a chance to hang out with friends, man. Like, I
There you
consider
go.
you
That's
guys
right.
all friends. You know, this is the world changed dramatically, especially with the pandemic and everything, and everyone ended up being home more than they ever wanted to be. Um, and it's, you know, a lot of people, I think, lost touch with just the idea of hanging out. And that's one of the things that I want to come across in my channel, is that feeling of hanging out with friends, like that, the idea of old school couch co-op gaming, what it
Mhm.
was like to sit down. Like, if I'm playing a game on a stream and I got people hanging out and chat, I want you guys to feel like you're there with me. And I
Right.
want to feel like I'm there with you. It's like we're talking about whatever we're talking about while we're hanging out and playing a game. That's really my goal for the channel, is for a place that people could just hang out, have a good time for a little while, turn off your brain, and just, you know, have a little bit of an escape. And
Yeah.
you know, I'll never take a path of going into politics or whatever else in the world. Like, that's not what it's about. This, I want it to be a place where people can escape and just
Hmm.
have a good time.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So a couple comments here from Nerd for Real. It's like you got an interest. He asked, "Do you guys watch Better Call Saul at all?" Don't know many who watch it. Personally, I have never. To be honest, I've never even seen Breaking Bad.
I was just gonna say, I'm one of those. I never watched it either. I have nothing against the show. It was actually one of those shows I wanted to watch. I
That's it.
just it just never happened.
Hey, Darth Maximus, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Welcome. But yeah,
Uh,
so it's that's you know, when you get to a certain point in your life where it's like, okay, if you like doing something like, basketball or football, or, even
mm,
on recreation, but then, father time catches up with you and then you can't do that anymore. So it's like you got to find some other outlet um, to get you
mhm.
through, you know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And some doing more chance licensing. Paul, yeah, exactly. Exactly. You bring up a great point.
Yeah. And look, there's plenty of great channels that are all about that. And that's what it's meant for, and that's great. I have nothing against it. It's just not my thing, and I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what?
Me neither. Me
Yeah.
neither. Okay, let's see what Cobra Disney. It's pronounced nerd poor eel. Okay, my mistake.
All right, I'm not the only one that gets judged on how we say things.
It's hilarious. So then it's like, I don't know. There's other content creators in the in over in your area. Are there any YouTubers that you've met in real life?
No,
All,
not in real life. I would love to meet so many people, you know, that we've all met each other through like EBN and stuff like that. I'm jealous of everybody that's going to the Nashville
yeah, me
meetup.
too.
I unfortunately can't go to this one this year. Maybe next year. I know Coach Nick was saying this was going to be like an annual thing. Um, so maybe next year, maybe I can get
Yeah,
it
that'd
kind
be
of
a bucket
planned
list
out.
for me.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing, because I know some people are going to be
So,
streaming from out there and making some clips and stuff to share. I mean, it was so cool seeing because Paul had met Coffee on Korriban in real life, and they
right.
did a few videos. They did a couple of chat sessions and stuff. Even did some music together.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's if you meet a couple and just do a couple collabs, that's even
Mhm.
better. So, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could afford to do something like that, go to that convention, but, I've got other plans too, but,
Mhm.
for with me also wanting to cover, my other topics, I haven't put out any Disneyland content yet, but I hope
Mhm.
that changes. My wife and
Yeah,
I are planning on going, sometime in the fall.
nice. Yeah,
So,
because you got
hopefully, and I'm hoping to meet a few content creators while I'm at the park.
that'd be awesome, dude. Yeah, are you gonna go, the one in Florida or California?
In California, because I live in
California?
Oregon.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Because I was just thinking with, Drunk 3PO, he's always at the Orlando one, right? That's where he always
Yeah,
does park
I think
hopping?
so.
I like that channel too. Park hopping?
Yeah,
That's a fun one.
okay.
But
Yeah,
that's
and
why I
there's some
like the idea
Disneyland
behind your
content.
channel with doing those different segments. So because you're Cobra Disney Jedi, you got the Cobra Kai stuff, Disney parks and everything, and then Star Wars. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you got for the different topics, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna put out a list. Like I said, it's a matter of making the time, and with all the upgrades that we've been doing with our house, I've been focusing on that. But as things settle down, I'm definitely gonna put out some things on Disneyland and why I like it, and
Mhm.
some of the favorite rides I like to do. In fact, I'm planning on having coffee and Corbon next week. Hint
Nice.
hint plug for next week, and I'm trying to we're gonna talk Disneyland because he says he's grown up there, and so I
Mhm.
want to pick his brain on it. And there's some rides I've been on there, and some rides I can't wait to try because it's been 6 years since I've last been there.
It's been longer for me, man. I went the last time I was at Disney was my honeymoon. My wife and I had our honeymoon at Disney in Orlando. And man, that was what are we at now? 13 years ago now?
Oh wow,
Eh,
I'll bet yeah. I mean, it depends. It's like some people are willing to travel from my neck of the woods to Florida, and
mm,
people travel from your neck of the woods to California, and
yep.
yeah, I'm just fine with just staying on the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's a shorter trip and it's cost effective.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, so it's like that was it for the list of questions I had, but I wanted to just pick your brains on some video games,
Yeah,
so
man.
it's like what was the first gaming console you ever owned?
Ooh, that's easy, man. It's the Atari 2600.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was
I don't know
that,
if I ever owned it, but I
mm.
did play on it.
So the Atari was my father's system, and then obviously he's playing with me and my brother, and I grew up playing Asteroids, which is one of my favorite games of all time, like
Mhm.
Missile Command, the original Mario Brothers, uh, Donkey Kong, Space Invaders, all that. This is
Mhm.
what I grew up playing. But the the console that basically changed my gaming life was the NES. And I still remember clear as day when
Yes.
my father and my uncle came home with the Nintendo Entertainment System bundle.
Yep.
It was the bundle. It was so um living in New York, um that day my father ended up going out to Manhattan to where my uncle was working, and he was doing some work out there as well. And the Nintendo made its North American debut in Manhattan. And
Oh
it was
wow.
just there for I forget what the time frame was. It was not a crazy long time frame, but the only place to get it was Manhattan. And it just so happened they were passing by whatever store and they saw it and they're like, "Well, that's pretty cool." And they picked it up and came home with it. And it was the bundle with Robbie the Robot and the
Mhm.
Zapper and the Mario slash Duck Hunt cartridge and the whole deal.
Yep.
It was a
Yep.
great bundle.
Yeah, it was great. I remember that too because I think that's one of the first gaming things that I personally bought as well. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, and we had the gun with when we did duck hunt and did all. What's
Yeah,
underrated too is the clay pigeon
that
shooting.
was my favorite mode. The clay shoot. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
as I still play that. Dude, I have a tube television right next to me for the sake of playing Duck Hunt and Clay Shoot.
right.
because you have to have a tube TV to
Yeah.
use the light gun.
And yeah, and again, who didn't shoot the dog when he'd snicker at you?
Always, you have to.
It's a given.
It's just the
It's
rule.
a rite of passage, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. I remember on the Atari playing, some like space, like you said, Space Invaders. But I even remember playing Pong.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that was one of the first video games I ever played. To be
Yeah,
honest,
with the home machine. Yeah,
it
you
was
get
either
the with the paddles and everything.
yeah, it was either Space Invaders or Pong. One of those
Mm-hmm.
two.
I remember Space Invaders was my mother's favorite game, and then me and my dad would play Asteroids, and our competition between each other was who could flip the score back to 0 more times in a row.
Oh wow.
Because eventually you run out of characters, and it just goes
Hmm.
back to 0.
Oh
And
really?
we would
Yeah,
just play for hours, man. It was so much fun.
yeah. Do you remember Pitfall?
I love Pitfall.
Yeah.
That was
Every time you fall, did you ever try to jump the scorpion and see if you could clear it?
oh, God, I don't think I've ever cleared the jump over the scorpion.
No.
I got so good at landing on the crocodile's heads just
Yes.
right.
Close to that
Um,
there.
you know what? The thing about that game that I think why I loved it so much was because it looked like leaps and bounds better than every other Atari game at the time. Because you had there was a character, and this was a side-scrolling game. Like it blew my mind seeing Pitfall because I'm used to playing
Mhm.
Space Invaders or Missile Command, like a single
Right.
screen
Mhm.
whatever. But now I'm actually a guy who's running and
And
jumping
jumping.
over things and platforming. I was like, this is unbelievable. Um, I know they've done like remakes and sequels over the years, but it was always that original one that I would go back to.
Yeah.
You play Pong once. It's a great you
Well,
ever watch that 70s show?
yes,
Do you
I
remember the
did.
episode where
Yes.
Mr. Foreman and Kelso take apart the Pong machine so they could
Uh-huh.
shrink the paddles?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was hilarious. That was a hilarious show, and it
Mm,
was funny because it's like took me back to my childhood whenever we'd played a Pong video game.
yep.
You had the option to going slow or super fast, and
Yeah.
I'd be torturing my brother on it. It's like I'd turn it to super slow when it come to me, but then when I hit it, then I hit it super fast.
Yeah.
So I get the points.
Nice. Oh
Mm,
man. These games and I love coming back to them and let me grab something here real quick. I'll show you something.
okay. Once again, we're talking about video games here, and we're having some strolled down memory lane.
Oh, helps if I unmute. So going back to these games, especially now, can be tricky sometimes. But there's been so many advancements. Obviously, there's emulators out there, and people will pirate games and they'll get ROMs and stuff like that. But I love having the actual hard copies of games. But trying to connect an Atari 2600 to a modern TV is not always the simplest thing to do, and sometimes it's almost
Right.
impossible. But I have an original Atari. I have it hooked up to a tube TV. It's here ready to go.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, I discovered this company called Hyperkin, and they make consoles. This one is called the Retron 77,
Oh wow.
and it takes the Atari cartridge, and it has the ports for the controllers and the reset buttons and the switches and everything. And this hooks up HDMI and outputs at 720, and you can play Atari on a modern TV.
Wow.
And this thing basically revitalized my entire collection of Atari 2600 cartridges. And the cool thing is that it came with its own paddle. Yeah, they got the slot, for the cartridge itself, the original ports, so you're using the actual controllers. And you can put the original controller in here or the one that it came with, which it's just a recreation of the single joystick. And it feels great. The thing works really well. The other system I got, I can't really pull it over because it's all hooked up and everything. Same company, Hyperkin, makes a system called, well, they have a series called the Retron system. And then there's a Retron 1, there's a Retron 3. I have the Retron 5. And the reason it's called the 5 is because it takes 5 different cartridge types. This Retron 5 will play NES, Famicom, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and Game Boy games.
Oh, wow.
And there are 2 ports each for each console generation to take the actual controllers. So you play the actual cartridge with the real controller. Output 720 over HDMI, and you've got your classic games on. I have Mike Tyson's Punch Out in it right now.
Oh man, I remember that game. I played that at the arcade.
Yeah. But it's when I discovered this company, it blew me away. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because I've been using composite video switchers and then pulling it through an HDMI adapter and then reconverting it, trying to upconvert it to 1080 or 720, and then sometimes it doesn't come out quite right, and you get some distortion on the screen. And I started looking at reviews of this. I was like, I'm looking at all these reviews, and people are like, "This just works." I'm like, "All right, I'm in. Purchase." And then showed up, and I play the heck out of this thing, man.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Yeah, you gotta promote that on your show one of
Yeah.
these days.
Well, I do
That way,
have.
hopefully, more people can try to perhaps purchase a device like that.
It's actually listed on my default set of description stuff on all my videos. So
Oh,
I
nice.
put the
Okay, all
goals.
right.
If I cross 1,000 subs, the giveaway is a Retron system.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get him to 1,000 subs, people. Let's get this.
I can't
Mike,
promote this enough, man.
his YouTube link is in my description below, so go check it out. But yeah, that's so. Then you talking about Atari, and then what was your thoughts on the when Nintendo came out?
I mean that was such a major difference from Atari because now, Atari was a lot of it's left to your imagination, because you're most of the time
Mhm.
you're moving maybe like a little square or a dot or whatever it is, and you're just like, okay, that's supposed to be this, and that's this or whatever it might be. Occasionally, you get a game like Pitfall or even the infamous ET game where you
Mhm.
know what you're looking at. Nintendo comes along, and now we have these sprites on the screen that are like, I know that character. That looks
Yeah.
like the cartoon I watched or whatever. What like now you're going on full side-scrolling platforming adventures, and to take a game like DuckTales, which is a beloved title both in game and show and comics, and you get to play as Scrooge McDuck, and it looks like you're playing the show right like you sat down and watched the Disney afternoon. Like it's just insane what you were capable of doing with the Nintendo Entertainment System. So to be able to have a system where all of a sudden now I'm interacting with characters that I would watch on a Saturday morning, it blew me away. We had Ninja Turtles games, but then we're getting introduced to characters that would stay with us our entire life, like Link and Zelda. And then we get Super Mario. We all met Mario back on the Atari 2600, but now we have Super Mario. And it was a world of difference on that system. And I don't know, that's where I think the Nintendo Entertainment System is where I was truly solidified as a gamer. Like that was it. I was like, I love this. And I never wanted it to go away.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so then with that, Nintendo. I mean, and then that just kind of revolutionized all the video games. Then other consoles came out. So, How many game consoles do you have?
Whew. Well, some of them I have now that I didn't have as a kid. I mean, just sitting in front of me here, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 8, 9 consoles right here. But
Hmm.
when it came to the 16-bit era, I had to make a choice. You were either a Sega kid or you were a Nintendo kid.
Uh-huh.
And my parents, I was very lucky enough for my parents to be like, we'll get you a system, but you got to pick. And
Yep.
I chose the Sega Genesis. And then for a large portion of my life, I was the Sega kid because I had the Sega Genesis, and then I eventually got the Sega CD attachment, and I even got the 32X. And meanwhile, some friends and some of my cousins, they had the Super Nintendo. And didn't own a Super Nintendo until my adult life. So I'm only just now playing a ton of Super Nintendo titles that I never played before. So I'm experiencing these for the first time. I'm playing Super Mario World for the first time. And
Wow.
I know that is one of the most beloved Mario games out there. I've never beaten it. I'm only in like World 3. So,
Nice. Very nice.
so
So then, and then also, with all the gaming consoles that was out there, but then, handheld really changed the game on that
yep.
as well. So, what types of handheld games do you enjoy playing?
I loved the original Game Boy. Me and my best friend, we both had the Game Boy, and we had the link cable, so we could play two-player games. We would play Tetris against each other. So if we were like going on a road trip, we'd be in the back seat and playing Tetris on the original Game Boy. My brother had the Game Gear, the Sega Game Gear, which had a cool collection of games on there. My favorite handheld system, um, well, now, I mean, by far I think the best handheld out there on the market is the Nintendo Switch because it's literally a console and a handheld all in one. But prior to that, a very underrated handheld system is the PlayStation Vita.
Hmm.
The
Okay.
Vita is fantastic, and Sony abandoned it. But what it's capable of, and the titles that are on there, and just the graphics alone, the PlayStation Vita is it it's beyond the PS3. It's somewhere between a PlayStation 3 and a PlayStation 4. That's how good it is.
Hmm. Wow.
So it's pretty crazy that that system got abandoned, especially with the success of like the Nintendo 3DS. Handhelds are a great way of keeping gaming going. There's a huge market for it. Um, and I'm surprised that it's not invested in as like it doesn't seem like it gets much investment into it as it deserves, because the whole idea of being able to travel and game at the same time is, I think that's great. Going on vacation, going on road trips, and you got the kids being able to play some games and stuff in the back seat while you're driving. I mean, that was the dream back in the day. We all wanted to play Pac-Man, while we were going on a 6-hour drive or something like that. Now it's, to quote country singer Brad Paisley in some of his songs, he talks about, I used to have to get a ride out to the arcade, but now I can play that on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this like world where gaming accessibility is so much more than it used to be, but I feel like it's almost not taken advantage of as much as as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
it's
mm,
so easy to do it,
yeah.
but so
Yes.
then talking about video games or gaming consoles, are there any like dream crossovers that you'd like to see happen? Like, say, was there like a Sega Genesis game that you'd like to see played on a Nintendo game or gaming
Mm.
console or something like that? Or
I mean, we grew up with the Rivalry. between Sega and Nintendo, and the thought of Sonic and Mario ever joining forces or being on the same system, it was almost like, how dare you say that? you know? And then eventually they did. Sega made the choice to get out of the console wars and just make games for everybody. And then we got this
Mhm.
crossover happening, which I think that crossover, Sonic and Mario, spawned all of the rest of the possibilities of crossovers that we've seen. That it happened a lot in fighting games, where you get like Marvel versus Capcom and stuff like that, and then everybody always wanted to see Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter and Tekken versus whoever, and it was so many crossovers that I think spawned from Sonic and Mario meeting. But now, like, I would love to see some like third party titles revitalized for modern day consoles. Like Earthworm Jim, for example, was one of my favorite games on the Sega. I would love to see that like in some form on a modern console. We did get to see a few years ago, one of my all-time favorite Sega Genesis titles was Toe Jam and Earl, and it got a remake, and it came out on the PlayStation and on the Switch, and I guess it's probably on the Xbox as well. Um, a full remake of the original Toe Jam and Earl. I never thought in a million years that would ever happen,
Mhm.
and it plays like the old one. Obviously, there's advancements and stuff and new things because you can't just make literally the same game, and people would be kind of upset. So it is a new experience, but at the same time, it's incredibly nostalgic. It's like, wow, I'm playing Toe Jam and Earl on a PlayStation. Like, it's like, what is happening? Oh, so there's a lot of titles like that I hope to see reborn again. We live in a world where remakes and reboots are just incredibly common, almost too much. But every once in a while, you get a reboot or you get a remake that's done by fans, that's done by people who are passionate about that property, and it's going to be good. So the people who did like the Toe Jam and Earl remake were clearly fans, and it plays so awesome, and I love it. And it's again, that's that simultaneous two-player, and with a whole bunch of new surprises. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of options out there. It's just, I
Mhm.
guess it just takes the right timing and the right game studio to decide to put some money into it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because so many options with because a lot of the rivalries they try to bring out the same game. You know, whether it's a PlayStation, whether it's a Nintendo. Um, are there any differences on any of the games that are identical but on the different gaming consoles?
Now, not so much. Back in the day, there were dramatic differences. For example, Aladdin on the Sega Genesis is completely different from Aladdin on the Super Nintendo. They're two completely different games.
Okay.
Everything from how it's controlled to the levels that you play. But now when something comes out and it's on multiple platforms, it's generally the same game. Nintendo is usually the exception, for a couple of reasons. One, because their consoles tend to not be as powerful as the current Xbox and the current PlayStation at any given generation. Nintendo's always been about family experiences and accessibility and things like that. So I get it. I never expect there to be a Nintendo console that's going to be like truly rivaling the PS5 or PS6 or whatever we get to. The Nintendo Switch is a fantastic game system, but it has its limitations. So we'll see a revamped version of a Nintendo title versus what we get on a PlayStation or an Xbox. A great example was the Ghostbusters game that came out years ago, where the original cast of the film reprised their characters, and it was basically Ghostbusters 3. And if you wanted the full experience, the full cinematic experience, um, catch you later, Darth Maximus. If you wanted the full experience of that game, you either played it on the PlayStation 3, on the PC, or the Xbox 360. But if you played it on the Wii, on the Nintendo Wii, it was a different game. It had even completely different graphics. It looked very animated. It was this exaggerated cartoon style of the characters, still voiced by the actors, some different dialogue, but revamped. It was motion controls. It was like watching a cartoon, where when you played it on the other systems, it looked like you were playing a movie.
Wow.
And we'll still see some differences. We're actually going to get another example of that very soon. That company Aspire, who's been porting all those Star Wars games to the current consoles, where we got ports of Pod Racer, we got Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy, Republic Commando. We have Force Unleashed coming to the Nintendo Switch, but it's not the version that was on the PC and the PlayStation and Xbox. It's the Nintendo Wii version, which was very different. Toned down graphics, different style, and motion controls. So that's the closest thing I've seen where it used to be where it was the Genesis versus the Super Nintendo. But outside of that, if it's PlayStation versus Xbox, you're playing pretty much the same exact game. There'd be very, very little difference.
Yeah. That's interesting, because then it allows you the opportunity. It's like if you want to play a specific game, and if if it's, and now it can be on any gaming system, though. Which is nice. So
Yeah.
it's so good that the companies are resorting to that. So then what about games on computers? Do you enjoy playing games on the computers, or do you just prefer your gaming consoles?
I always prefer the consoles. That's what I grew up on, but I do enjoy some PC gaming. Like I have a decent size collection of games on Steam, which for the most part I end up playing with a controller anyway. I was never all that good at using the keyboard and mouse for gaming. But
Me
that
neither.
said, I grew up playing Doom and Duke Nukem and Wolfenstein and stuff like that. We're using the keyboard and mouse and everything. It was really like those old school original first person shooters. That's where I would play on the computer. But if it was like an adventure game or something like that, I played on the console with a controller. Um, the first time I ever purposely wanted to upgrade my computer was years ago when Star Wars Jedi Outcast, when Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast came out. And at the time, it was only a PC release. It wouldn't be till later that it came out on other things like the Nintendo GameCube. But at that point, I was like, I want this game. I want to play it. But I need a computer that can handle it. So my uncle was always big into computers and helped me out. And we made a decent machine for the time. And then I got that game and played Jedi Outcast. And then similar experience when Knights of the Old Republic came out. It was coming out on the PC and also Xbox, but I didn't have an Xbox at the time. So PC was the only way to go. And again, I had to play with a keyboard and mouse and just kind of figure out how to work with it. But I'm not good really at all playing on the PC. Like
Me
it's just,
neither. Me
yeah, right.
neither.
It's a
Yeah,
totally different
it
feel.
gets frustrating. I mean,
Yeah.
I have enough trouble as it is on some of the controllers on the channel on just regular games.
Mhm.
I mean, when the N64 came out and those controllers came out, I was confused.
Oh
Not gonna
yeah.
lie. I mean, it's compared to the controllers that you'd have on the NES or even the Super NES.
Hmm.
And
I mean, that was I forced myself to get used to that controller because I had to play Ocarina of Time. I had to play Majora's Mask. Yeah, and that was another system that I didn't own myself. My friends had it, so I got to experience some of it. Like there was plenty of nights where we all played GoldenEye on the N64, but it wasn't until now as an adult that I have a Nintendo 64 sitting next to me, and I can play all these games like Pilot Wings and Star Fox and Donkey Kong Country 64 and all this stuff. I'm experiencing it now. And it's weird going back to that, or actually I should say more, it's weird experiencing that almost for the first time now, because I have to get used to that controller after, I'll go from holding a PlayStation 5 controller to an N64 controller. That's a night and day difference. But, I like playing the actual cartridges or having the actual disc of the game. I like having the memory cards. I like physical media. I know it's gonna eventually fade away. Having collections like what's behind me is going to be it's going to become ancient at some point. But while it's out there and while it's available, I'm always going to collect it. I like, what it is? It's not just having the physical copy of the game, but it's like the artwork that comes with it, that's on the case, or maybe in the instruction manual, which we don't really get those anymore. When's the last time you got a game that had an instruction manual?
That's right.
So it's, I don't know, but I try to.
Basically, it's when you start the game up. I mean, it gives you the instructions right there on what buttons to push.
I mean, most of these games are like playing movies now at this point. It's pretty crazy. But I remember getting Legend of Zelda and opening up the instruction manual, and there was a story.
Wow.
Like the whole first few pages was a story.
My daughter's got some of the Zelda games on her Switch.
Nice.
So I've never even played a Zelda game, so
oh man,
I know nothing about it. So, and she's quite possessive of her video games. My son, like with the Switch that I just got, I bought myself a couple of games. I bought the Cobra Kai game.
Nice.
And then I bought a racing game with cars with Lightning McQueen and all. I think it's characters from even the third movie that came out.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
I still have to watch that one. I have it behind me on the shelf, still in the wrapper. I haven't watched that one yet.
Yeah, nice. So, well, that's all. We'll go ahead and call it. I want to say thank you so much. This was such a fun, trip down memory lane with these video games and some of the things that we did. Like I said, that's like I was so used to playing at the arcades. that was my thing. I'd save up money, get the quarters, go to the arcades, and some arcades you could put in $1 and they give you like 10 tokens for $1. And we had some nice local arcades that we'd go to. What is it about arcades that fascinated you?
I mean, you got the better graphics at the time. It was a whole experience because you're there with a whole crowd. And what happened recently, really cool thing was the owner of a local retro gaming shop in the area, which I go to. I was just there the other day, and he fulfilled a dream of his of owning an arcade and opened up an arcade, a retro arcade in our local mall. And I took my son there the other day, and we had a blast. And the cool thing was, I actually almost wish they had tokens or just put quarters in, but the deal is you go and you basically pay for the day or however many hours.
Oh,
and
really?
Every machine is set to free play. But it's all the old school games. There was a few like newer games in there, but for the most part, I'm going around, I'm playing Ghosts and Goblins. I was playing Donkey Kong. I was, we went and found the old Street Fighter machines. We played a ton of games, and we spent like half a day just hanging out, me and my son playing all these old games. And he was, he's 9, and I could see that his attention span was not all the way in there. Like I would have spent the whole day there. Like I would have been there till closing time. But you know, it was only so much he could really. He would lose interest in a game pretty quick, and but I wanted him to experience it, and he does want to go back. But I get it. I understand. You know, this is something that it's not like the gaming he knows, but
Yeah,
he's still fascinated by it, and he does have fun with it. But it's different now. You know, the people who were having fun at this place were the parents.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I remember that's like, back in the early 80s when Pac-Man came out. I mean, it's like, who would have thought that my mom and dad would take me to the arcade so that they could play Pac-Man? Because
Yeah.
it was such an easy game, and
Oh yeah.
we'd spend a couple hours there. Yeah,
Yep.
and I mean, it wasn't just one game you had to fight for. I mean, there was multiple Pac-Man games at the arcade, and they were all full. They
Oh
were
yeah.
all being used.
We had a place we used to go out to for breakfast. It was called Pancake Cottage, and in the place they had a Miss Pac-Man machine.
Oh
It
yeah,
was a huge lure of going to that place.
nice. So yeah, and I remember even where I lived, walking down to 7-Eleven, and there were like two or three arcade games there that
Hmm.
you'd play. There was like Asteroids, and then there was Defender, and then some other
Yep.
games. So
Oh yeah, it
that
was.
you get a Slurpee, you drink it, you play the game, and have fun.
Yep. The arcade game craze was it spread out so much because you'd find arcade games at bars, at the actual arcades themselves. You'd
Casinos,
find them laundromats. You'd find them in convenience stores. Like it
hmm
just
they're everywhere.
it was everywhere.
Yeah, so that
Wow.
was good times.
Yeah, man.
So, but again, having these games at home, really changed it up. And so sadly, the arcade craze died down.
Yeah, man. It all eventually starts to fade, but that's why I say on my streams, you got to keep retro gaming alive because one day your games will be retro too.
That's right, exactly. So, and on that note, well, that's the perfect time to end this broadcast because I usually have the people I interview um, give their outros. So that's a great segue to end the stream. So I want to say thank you so much for
Um,
being on this. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I just want to say appreciate your time. And I know you have
oh,
to get yourself ready for work tomorrow. We
oh
got 3 hour
yeah,
time difference here.
always fun working on the weekends. But no, man, dude, I thank you so much for having me on here, man. This was a blast. I love
Oh, this
having
is great. This is
conversations
like my
like this.
longest live stream ever. It's great.
This is
I
this was
appreciate
definitely a
it.
good time.
I just want to say so. Thank you so much, and we'll definitely have to do this again. Talk some more
Absolutely.
vintage video games, whatnot. So, thank you so much, there, Matt.
My pleasure,
Take
dude.
care. All right. And that wraps it up for another edition of the Inner Tube. And want to say once again, thank you to the Matcave for joining me. This was a very fun live stream. I'm the Cobra Disney Jedi, and I just want to conclude by saying thank you so much. When life brings you down, always get back up, flip the script, and go seek adventure. Take care.